first of all, to notify everybody that this hearing is being recorded in accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law and broadcast over Lunenburg Public Access. Then we'll introduce the table here. Lisa Normandin is our administrative assistant, and Al Gravel. I'm Ray Beal, Don Bowen, Jim Besikowski, Hans Winthrop, and Paul Doherty. This is, as you'll see, there are 6 members here. Only 5 will be voting.
I'll hold out and let someone else.
Okay, so the voting members will be Al, myself, Jim, Hans, and Paul. All members can participate, but the board consists of 5 voting members. So Lisa will start off. Lisa will read the application and any other submitted documentation or communications, and then the applicant will have the opportunity to submit any additional documents or comments on the application. And anybody that's speaking would please come forward to the mic, because as I said, this is on air and they need to hear what you have to say, as well as it helps us all too. Doesn't appear to be any public here, but following the applicant's comments, we would open it for public comment. If there's anybody that does come in, again, we'd ask the same thing. Everybody would come forward to the mic, give their name and address, and say what they would like to bring to our attention. Following that, the members will have an opportunity, will raise any questions of the applicant and to comment on the application. And then we'll close any public comment and bring it to the board for deliberation. At the time, because of the nature of this, I'll review at the outset the required findings that we have for this particular application. So with that, would you please, Lisa?
This is an application for a special permit for dimensional variation, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 9, Zoning Board of Appeals. The name and address of the applicant is Douglas Jackson, 93 Lancaster Road, Apartment 3 in Shirley, Mass. The undersigned makes application as follows: to use the property located at 436 Massachusetts Avenue as a single-family home that is currently located in the Limited Business Zoning District. It's formerly known as the Hearthstone Agency. The proposed action has not begun. The basis for this application is found in the following section of the Lunenburg zoning bylaw, Section 83214. The street address of the property is 436 Massachusetts Avenue in Lunenburg, assesses map 73, parcel 9. The name and address of each holder of legal title to the land which is the subject of this case is 436 Mass Ave Realty Trust, Pamela A. Joseph and John I. and Ruth Ann White. 114 Chestnut Street, Lunenburg, Mass. 01462. And the deed is recorded in Worcester Northern District Registry of Deeds, Book 7508, page 267, and recorded November 4th, 2011. They have no knowledge of a prior appeal, application, or petition concerning the land or building involved in this case. Section 12, special permits. They have answered the questions as follows. The number 1 was, will the proposed action be injurious or dangerous to the public health or unduly hazardous because of traffic congestion, danger of fire or explosion, or other reasons? The reply, A, I plan on using the building as my primary residence, and as such, the proposed action will not be injurious or dangerous to the public health. Additionally, there will be no unduly hazards due to traffic congestion, as I do not plan on having a business in this location that would necessitate patrons visiting the property. B, will this action have a material adverse effect on the value of land and buildings in the neighborhood or on the amenities of the neighborhood? And the reply, as I plan to use the property for my primary residence, I will look to be making improvements to the property that will have a positive effect on the value of the land and of those properties around this one. Before making any such improvements, however, I would seek the advice of those town officials who would be able to assess what effects those changes would have on this and surrounding properties. C, will the proposed action be operated with reasonable regard for order and sightliness if an open use? C, I intend to use this property as my primary residence, and as such will not be in open use. I will also strive to maintain the landscape of the property, as well as any building repairs that are required to maintain the order and sightliness of the property. And D, will the proposed action produce noise, vibration, dust, odor, heat, or glare observable at the lot lines in amounts clearly detrimental to the normal use of adjacent property? And the reply, as the property will be my primary residence, there will be no excess noise, nor any operations that would cause vibration, dust, odor, etc., that would be detrimental to the normal use of adjacent properties. And that is signed on February 25th by Douglas Jackson. And there is a letter forwarded by the building inspector attached. Dear Douglas, please be advised that your request to use 436 Mass Ave as a residential dwelling requires a special permit dimensional variation from the Lunenburg Zoning Board of Appeals. Under Section 411D, a residential use is allowed in the commercial district, provided that it complies with Section 5141 of the Protective Bylaw. Since 436 Mass Ave only has .55 acres, the lot does not have the required lot area of the abutting residential district, which is 40,000 square feet. Therefore, a special permit dimensional variation will need to be granted in order to use the structure as a dwelling. If you have any questions in regards to this correspondence, feel free to contact me at my office. Applications for the Zoning Board of Appeals are available and processed from my office. Respectfully, Michael Savageau. There is also a letter of the current owners of the property, the Hearthstone Agency, to whom it may concern. I, John White, owner of the Hearthstone Agency at 436 Massachusetts Ave, Lunenburg, Mass., am writing to give my permission to have my building be permitted to use as a residence. I am in the process of closing my real estate office in Lunenburg and merging with Exit New Options Real Estate, Leominster. When this building at 436 Massachusetts Avenue was purchased in 1988, it was a residence and had been one for most of its life, if not all of it. Doug Jackson wishes to purchase the building and return it to its past use. Once the desks and real estate equipment are removed, it will be back to its original configuration as it was a residence, including a full kitchen which had never been removed. No floor plan changes have been made since the original purpose. I wish for you to grant the permit to allow its use as a residence. Thank you in advance. Sincerely, John I. White, owner, and Pamela Porter, owner. Attached is a list of abutters with a field card from the assessor's office showing the property. And I did receive a memo from the Board of Health agent just today. Lisa, I have reviewed the request to convert the above-mentioned property from a commercial use to a residential use. Recently, the Board of Health signed a permit to install a new sewage disposal system for the site with the capacity to handle a two-bedroom dwelling. I don't believe the Board of Health would have any concerns with the conversion if the following conditions are met. 1, a new septic is installed, and 2, a restriction is recorded on the deed for this property limiting the building to a two-bedroom house. A copy of the recording must be submitted to the Board of Health. And that's signed Jim Gariffi of the Neshoba Associated Boards of Health. And that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
I would make one comment. One of the attachments to the application included the property card from the assessor's office. And when I noted on that, when I went through this package, that it indicated that the zoning is shown on the property card is limited business. And in fact, it is commercial, as building commissioner had indicated in his memo. And so I wanted to clarify that, and I spoke with Adam, and he confirmed for me that this is indeed in the commercial district, because it makes a difference on what section we're in, and is correctly cited in Mike's memo to the board. I thought that in light of that, what I would do, I pulled the zoning map is on the Lunenburg site now for anybody to pull it down, and I blew up this section showing clearly that the lot that this house is on is within the commercial district, and so I thought that should be included in the paperwork. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Would the applicant like to come forward and make any comments, or do you have any additional material you'd like to present?
The application that I've submitted has everything that I wish to convey to the board members, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about me.
Just give us your name and address, please.
Douglas R. Jackson. I live at 93 Lancaster Road, apartment 3 in Shirley, Massachusetts, 01464.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? No?
I'm John White, 13 Jacqueline Drive in Lunenburg. I've known Doug for a long time, and his reactions and his comments are typical of who he is and the type of person that would be living there and taking good care of that property.
Thank you. Well, members of the board, any questions of the applicant or comments on the application? Want to start at this end this time?
I did have a question of the applicant. You have to come to the mic, sorry. Are you buying the property or renting the property? I wasn't quite sure.
Buying the property, sir.
Property, okay. And you're willing to live by the two-bedroom restriction as far as the septic goes and that?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Those are my questions, Mr. Chair.
I had a similar question, Mr. Chairman, so I don't have anything.
How far down the road does town sewerage go? Do you know?
I do not know that answer, sir.
It goes in front of the antique shop, Caswell's Antique Shop. That's as far as it comes up.
That's as far as it goes. So it would be a major problem to swing it around the corner.
But we checked at the point in time that that went in, because the neighbors, including the gas station, would have liked to have had sewage up there.
Come to the microphone,
And
please.
we checked to see what the price, excuse me.
I'm sorry, we can hear you, but the people at home
Yep.
can't hear you unless you come up to the mic.
The sewage goes just up to Caswell Antique Shop. All the neighbors beyond that point, including the gas station, when it went in, we checked with the town and with contractors to see how much it would cost to bring it up to our place. And $1 million was too much for the 5 places that were there. But that was
Beautiful house.
what it was going to be. Yeah.
And that was then.
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I have.
That's all?
Yep.
Don, do you have any?
No, I don't have
No?
any. The restriction, I didn't get the privilege of reading this, the restriction, 2 bedrooms. Is
Yeah.
that what it is?
That's what it said, yeah?
That's the restriction under the Board of Health.
Yeah, and what are they
For the
asking?
septic system they're
And what are they
installing.
asking for, a new system? I didn't see it.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
What does the letter say?
The Board of Health letter indicated that they have a permit to construct a septic system for a 2-bedroom home,
Oh, okay.
and only a 2-bedroom home.
Yeah, I didn't understand, thank you.
Very, very shortly, Bob Proctor is going to be putting that in for us. It's going to be a raised system, fully new system, new septic tank, new pump tank, and it will be pumped up to the top of the hill behind our office.
Yeah.
That's where all the testing was done.
Al?
Just really a few comments. The history of the house, we already know, you went over that. It was a residential home, changed to commercial. And I know you ran a real estate business out of there for a long time.
We did 27 years.
And, yeah, really, like you say, the inside of the house isn't changing. The kitchen's, it's still in there.
We never took it out.
Or you're gonna
We
remodel
never
and
changed
do different
anything
things,
around.
But again, the layout's all the same.
Yeah, and it is solely a 2-bedroom. There are 4 rooms in the property: kitchen, living room, 2 bedrooms, and a bath.
Right, right. And the way I look at it, I know it's under 5141, in the commercial district. To go back to residential, they do say that the building shall be constructed. But I look at this as, they're not really constructing a building. It's an existing residential home, originally changed to a commercial use. Now you want to go back to its original use, which is a residential home. And looking at the history, the paper, and everything else, I think it makes perfect sense. So that's really all I have as a comment on it. I assume it didn't pass Title V, and that's why...
It did not.
It did not.
We've been living with it without a leach field, which we didn't know. We bought it in 1988, and Title V wasn't around.
Right, right.
We had Title V done, and
Surprise,
without a leach field, we don't have a system. Fortunately, it's been a business, and we had it pumped
It was
regularly.
very limited, right.
So the tank was holding what we needed, so it wasn't anything that was spilling all over the place, but it would have,
Okay, thank you. That's really all I had.
Okay, so the dimensional variation that's being sought, as I understood the application, is simply the lot size.
Right.
That Mike cited in his note to the board. To start with, before we discuss it, I want to review the required findings for this particular section of the bylaw, because it is a little different than customarily for the dimensional variation. The required findings are: board shall find that the permit may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent and purpose of the bylaw, and that the specific site is an appropriate location for such building or alteration, that the proposed building or alteration is compatible with the existing neighborhood and with regard to size, location, and architecture, that the granting of the special permit will not adversely affect the neighborhood, that the granting of the special permit will not unreasonably diminish the available light, air, sunlight, and other amenities, and finally, there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. So those are the required findings in order for us to grant this special permit for dimensional variation.
Right.
I wanted to highlight those, and I think that the focus of this is basically is the lot size.
Correct.
Dimensional variation. Any further comments?
I tend to agree with Al. It was constructed as a house before zoning and everything, so reverting back to its original thing before, it's almost as if it would be grandfathered. If Mr. White were able or wanted to live there, I think he could have it as a grandfathered situation, but I think it's a great move to move backwards and lends itself into the neighborhood itself as a private home. Anyone else?
I don't have any comments, Mr. Chairman. I'm good.
Any further comments, Sal?
No, no,
So I'm ready for a motion. Would like to make a motion.
no, you want to, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'll make a motion that we approve the variance as requested.
Special permit.
With special permit, with the stipulation that it be considered a two-family dwelling or a two-bedroom dwelling.
Well, that's a
That's a
condition.
requirement.
Right, he has to record that.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, that's a motion. You second it?
Second.
And any further discussion? I guess my comment is, again, I want to see that we're focused on what I believe is the key point is that the lot size is a dimensional variation.
Right.
Yep.
That we would be granting with that.
Right.
So, I guess we're ready for a vote then. No further discussion.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And I'll vote aye as well. So it's granted unanimously for a dimensional variation. I need some closing remarks to go over with you. The special permit is granted with the contingency that the petitioner comply with all licenses, regulations, statutes, and ordinances of any and all applicable local, state, and federal boards or agencies with jurisdiction over the premises. So I guess the case in point here is the letter from the Board of Health is an example of that. The granting of the special permit shall inure to the benefit of the applicant and shall cease in the event the business is sold or sublet to another party. That is, this is granted to you, and it's the life. So if anybody else comes in, that would have to come back before the board.
Understood.
The special permit is subject to a periodic review by the permit granting authority or the enforcement officer to ensure compliance with the enumerated conditions, of which there were none.
Which there are none.
Non-compliance with any of the conditions might result in revocation. A copy of the board's decision shall be filed with the town clerk within 14 days. Any party aggrieved by the board's decision may appeal to Superior Court within 20 days after the decision is filed with the town clerk. No special permit shall take effect until a copy of the decision bearing the certification of the town clerk that 20 days has elapsed after the decision has been filed is recorded with the Registry of Deeds. It must be recorded. Special permit will lapse in 2 years unless substantial use or construction on substantial use has occurred. So, with that, we wish you well.
We wish you well. Good luck.
Good luck.
I have a question. The last one again, it says in the event
Do you want to adjourn?
that sell it, they'd have to.
You're all done.
Yes.
Yeah, you're all
You're all
set.
set.
That's an interesting.
Well, not, the special permit
think he's-
was a variation,
No, I'm,
dimensional variation.
yeah, and I understand it, but you granted, in my mind, it says, well, that's done and done forever, in my mind. And that's why I beg the question of you.
Night.
Thank you.
They sell
Good
that,
night.
Aye, good night.
anytime they sell that now into the future, then they sell, they're gonna come again?
Yes. That's always been the case.
No, and I agree. I'm not challenging that, but I'm challenging the uniqueness of this request. It just seemed to me that it would be, it's a done deal. Now it's a house to be sold without coming in front of the board again.
It would be contrary to the intent of zoning laws.
Yeah,
Because it's in a commercial
It's-
district.
Yeah.
It plays in my mind. That's why I just raised the question. It's interesting. I can imagine sometime you get down the line about
done.
three
Still on.
transfers, and then someone comes to do it, and they say, no, you can't have it, take it down.
Well, time changes everything, you know, there might be different conditions then too.
Well, yeah.
So it's granted to that individual,
Oh,
period.
I thought we were all up the air.
Adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye, aye, aye.
It's uniquely different, and that's why I raised it.